Indiana Jones. It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we contemplate Indiana Jones, cradles, and robbing 1 minute at a time.
Wait, did you say you were Pete Mummert?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I'll say it again. I'm Pete Mummert.
Hey, it's me, Tom Taylor. How you doing?
I'm Gerald the Bear Porter.
Chair Bear.
And I'm Mark Heidemann.
Hey, Mark.
Heidemann.
Hi, guys.
We must have discussed this the last time you were on in Last Crusade, but you were Marcus for a long time.
Yes.
Your name is not actually Marcus, but you were Marcus for a long time.
Yes,
Wow.
I was. And I was very proud of that. Because he's.
I think it was based on that, wasn't it? From Marcus from Raiders, right?
I think it would have to be, to be honest.
Yeah.
It must have been.
Maybe Dr. Marcus from Star Trek 2, which keeps coming up for some reason.
Yeah. No, I'm
Marcus
going with,
Aurelius.
Yeah. All smarter than me. So that's,
Can I ask you something real quick? When I used to play as a kid, as opposed to when I play now. No, I always
Take it
used
easy
to like.
there,
I used to like pretend that I was some other guy. And I was like, I'm the guy who just got off the motorcycle. I'm going to go beat up the bully. And my name was always Mark.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Like in my fantasy world, my name was always Mark. And occasionally I like fancied myself a John. I was John or Mark. And I always wanted that name. That's why I chose, my confirmation name. I chose Marcus.
Right.
Because it was the only damn name I had any control over. And I just want to know, what's it like living a life where you love your name?
Well, I actually don't know.
Assuming he does love his name.
You're assuming I love my name. But
That's
it's
true.
Funny. It's this.
When I love your name, what's that like?
I love it. No, it's funny because it's a common name, but when I was growing up, Tom, we had like maybe 3 Marks in the whole school, if that, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So
there were a few.
I guess it was kind of falling out of fashion, which is the story of my life. So it was, strangely, the name I always wanted to be Larry. And I don't know why.
Are you serious?
And I think
Three's Company fan.
I'm not kidding. I think it might have been that because he had his own apartment.
Yeah.
I thought, how cool is that?
Wow. He doesn't live with 2 girls or anything.
No.
He's all by himself.
I don't think that's ever been said before in history.
I'm
always
pretty confident
wanted to
in
be
that.
a Larry.
I wanted to be Steve, but I'm pretty sure it was just because of Steve Austin.
Yeah, I was going to guess that too.
Or Steve Crouch.
Or Steve Crouch, sure.
Well, Pete, what about you?
Well, I was Fred for a couple years.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Wait, what?
Wait.
So, I was
What?
I was always from my earliest memories, I was always a huge fan of Sanford and Son. And
Oh, that's right.
in
You
high
did say
school,
that.
I moved to a new school. And the first day in school, like before the first class started, I was telling the kid next to me, I was talking about Sanford and Son just because I loved Sanford and Son. And so when the teacher starts reading everybody's names, in the first class, and he gets to my name and he's like, Peter, and the kid next to me goes, actually, I prefer to be called Fred, sir. And the guy was like, okay, Fred. And like all the kids thought that I wanted to be called Fred. I was like, I'm going with it. And so for 2 years,
That kid's cool.
people call me Fred.
Wow.
And so to this day, if
awesome.
someone says Fred, I'll turn around.
Wow. Should we start calling you Fred?
You're welcome to.
Would it be weird if you were Fred to us? I might try it for the rest of this episode, just to try it on.
Fred.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of this episode,
yeah.
today we're talking about minute 42, the meaning of life. And minute 42 begins with Mac lighting his cigar and it ends with what is hopefully, at least for Jerry, an interesting geographical fact.
We can only hope. I have actually something that I meant to say at the end of the last minute, and I apologize for breaking the rules like this. But Indy,
you're just like Mutt.
I know. I'm awful. I can pick my own stuff to tickle. Way at the beginning of minute 40, at the beginning of this week, Indy was all excited because he met these two guys who told him that Oxley had been picked up by the police and brought to the sanitarium. And we've been watching them since then walk to this place.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody knows that they're coming. But at the end of the last minute, the very end of the last minute, he's greeted by one of these nuns.
Mm-hmm.
She like approaches him and says, "Oh, here, yeah, come on in." And like without any kind of like, she's clearly expecting him.
Yeah, she breaks right into the middle of a sentence.
Yeah.
But then in the next shot, shot, is it the same nun? Because suddenly she's behind that gate.
Right. I'm telling you, that's his sister. That's the only explanation. Because you're right, Tom. First of all, those guys
don't agree with me when you're being weird. It doesn't help anybody.
I mean, do you think they're just going to let people into a sanitarium? I mean, in Indy's case, maybe.
His dad would totally do that, though. His dad was a medievalist. They've totally, like, the daughter they didn't want would end up in a convent.
It's true.
Why is Indy translating for Mutt a minute after we learn that Mutt speaks Spanish?
And he's like an amazing translator. He's talking right over her. It's almost like they're talking at the same time.
Yeah.
He's like a UN translator.
It's like he's just making it up. He's like doing Werner Herzog, where he just like he's telling people what they're saying, and it's complete baloney. He's like, well, he probably meant this, you know.
He did the same thing in Temple of Doom, didn't he? With the shaman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Kind of kept talking over him, saying what he was saying.
Yeah. By the way, I never believe this Indy polyglot nonsense.
No. Especially this many languages.
Yeah,
like nobody on Earth
getting
could
silly.
do this. Yeah,
right. I mean,
he did spend 2 weeks with a couple of guys with Pancho Villa.
Yeah,
that's true. You know, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You know, is everyone in the sanitarium an unorthodoxly archaeologist? Like, do you think they're all? Yeah, do you think they're all just from different walks of life? And they all kind of either can only communicate in riddles, or maybe they're all from different parts around the world and they just kind of happen to land there. Maybe this town is like a black hole for people who are just sort of wandering aimlessly. You know, it kind of draws them there, and they're no longer wandering aimlessly, and they get picked up, and the nuns put them in the sanitarium. They're the police.
Well, this one guy's yelling, "I stabbed him! I stabbed him! I stabbed him!"
Really?
Oh, that's what he was yelling?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird. He seems upset about it, but like also like.
Well, that's encouraging. He's making progress in that sense. Yeah.
I guess so.
Well, I mean, that's a confession. Why isn't he in jail then?
Well, maybe, I guess he didn't do it, right? So he's
Yeah,
unless he didn't do it. That's what he's doing.
This man's crazy. He thinks he stabbed somebody. But
unless he's using that in the sense that he tickled somebody like Mutt.
Yeah.
I tickled him.
That's why he's reaching out to Mutt. Yeah. I'm good at tickling.
But Mutt,
tickling
Mutt seems to connect with this guy, but Indy has absolutely no interest in anybody.
None.
Like, he's completely hardened. And does Indy care about human suffering?
He's just not ticklish.
He never broke away from the ox.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was wondering, is Indy just, is he almost like acting like, I'm going to show this kid I've been through this stuff, and the kid is still wowed because look at him, he's like, this is crazy, I'm here. But Indy's cool, calm, and collected. He's been here 1,000 times. It's no problem. I guess.
Right.
Do you think inside though, Indy's like, oh my god, that guy's getting stabbed somebody?
This isn't my first funny farm, kid. I married your mom.
It's interesting too. We get like the ceiling fans are very reminiscent of Temple of Doom, and the phonograph that they walk by looks a lot like the one in Raiders. And I'm curious, do you think Indy is starting to feel his age when he sees these things from the prime of his youth are now sort of these rickety old antique objects, like collecting dust? Do you think that's Indy?
Oh,
like himself.
artifacts and trinkets.
Yeah.
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 Well, Mark, that's a great question. We'll go right to you. Is Indy feeling his age? Not like just showing it, but is Indy feeling his age here?
In this particular minute? In this movie?
Just in the movie.
In the movie?
The way they draw him.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a maturity, thing going on with him in this movie, for sure. But he can still do it.
Yeah. Now, Heidemann, you're going to understand this. You're maybe the first person on the show so far who will understand this fully. I keep bringing up, they're setting up a lot of, Indiana Jones is old. He's feeling his age.
Mm-hmm.
The spark of life is gone. And I keep saying, why doesn't this movie handle that idea nearly as well as Star Trek 2?
Yes, exactly.
See?
Exactly.
You're with me.
Exactly.
Did you guys hear that? That was awesome. He said it as I said it.
Star Trek 2, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You shut up. You shut your filthy mouth.
Well, do you think they don't handle it well here? Do you think
I don't think they handle it. I think they set it up and they don't really do anything with it. Indy doesn't have any kind of he's got like one kind of, oh look, there's a kid and a woman I dated once, and but there's no like Kirk is like feeling his age. He's wearing glasses. He doesn't want to put them on in front of the crew and stuff. And, he's feeling old and worn out and everything. And he talks about it. He's got like soliloquies about it and stuff. And then he comes out the other end and he's feeling a lot better at the end. He's feeling young and powerful and everything. And
maybe Mutt's keeping Indy young here because Mutt just keeps jabbing him about his age. So maybe he's putting on a front, being like, hey, I'm not that old kid.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like they were trying to say going into the movie, yeah, he's old, he's too old to do this, but we're just going to make a real cursory kind of nod to it, and then we're just going to pretend he's not old. It's like
it's almost like they just need to instead of like setting up a theme, they're just explaining that he's old. Don't feel weird about it because he's old, I guess, but here's why: like he's old.
But they should have learned, like in A View to a Kill, where Roger Moore is clearly looking way too old, and they're just pretending it's not happening.
Yeah. Of course, Tanya Roberts would be into him. He's 80.
Or
what's weird?
Or when Moneypenny, ages out, in the later ones, it's like, please.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever see Picnic?
Oh, years ago, but yeah.
Where William Holden is he's like 48 and he plays a kid right out of college. There's right at the beginning, he jumps off of he's like riding on a freight train as a bum, and he jumps off the freight train, and there's a guy like a trainman that's younger than he is, and he's like, "Sorry, sir."
Right. Well, it's like Gary Cooper in Love in the Afternoon. It's like more like Love at 10 to Midnight or something. It's like he was way too old to be doing this.
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
it happens.
Well, we get to the riddle in Ox's letter again. Follow the lines that only the gods can read that lead to Oriana's cradle, birth. And then he says, Oriana wasn't born in Peru. He was born in Spain. He was a conquistador. He came here for the gold. Do you think Indy is a conquistador?
Yes.
He might have been comfortable in that role.
Well,
yeah, if he had been,
it's kind of like gold, God, and fortune and glory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I actually learned that in 5th grade about conquistadors. That they said it was like God, gold, and glory. Yeah, that's I remember them writing it on the chalkboard. Like, why did they? Why did the Spanish come and enslave every country that they were and steal everything from?
Yeah.
And it was like, remember, children, the 3 G's. God, gold, and glory. So, in that one, the God one's a little iffy. In Indy's case, it's more like discovering gods. Yeah.
Right.
Poking,
tickling gods.
Begrudgingly acknowledging gods. Yeah.
And then the gold, yes. The fortune and glory, yes.
Yeah.
Not that anybody's counting except for me, but this is the third time that Indy has explained what happened to Oriana
Yeah.
to Mutt and to us. This is the third time.
And I still don't get it.
Like it felt weird when like the second time he brought it up, he's like, Oriana, remember that guy I told you about? Who like disappeared looking for the thing? And now Mutt's like, oh, what happened to him? It's like, I told you. He disappeared looking for the thing.
Again, though, this is not true what he tells Mutt. Like he says,
you don't say.
Like there is some question in how he died. Like some places say he died of grief, or others say it was in a shipwreck or from poisoned arrows. But the way he makes it sound like nobody knew, like he just disappeared somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Right. You know what's weird? Why do they? If Oriana's a real guy, why use a real guy? There were plenty of conquistadors. Why not just have
like a lesser
make up some guy associated with this?
Yeah.
And then P won't be all annoyed.
I got a fun fact for Jerry here, though. Let's see if Jerry knows the answer.
Ooh.
Do you know how the Amazon River got its name, Jerry?
Oh.
I'm going to say that's a no.
God, no, I'm thinking. Well, is it one of those Amazonia things?
Yeah, so Oriana was the first known person to circumnavigate the entire river.
Mm.
And when he was about halfway down the river, he was attacked by this band of warriors, half of whom were men and half were women. And so he decided, since there were women warriors, that it reminded him of the mythical Amazon women from Herodotus.
Mm.
Wow.
And so ever since then, the Amazon River has been called the Amazon.
Cool.
That's incredible.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more interesting than this minute.
But it's funny, like this is a really big guy. Like
right.
They named the biggest river on earth after the guy.
Yeah. And again, like Indy's talking about the riddle and everything, and we were saying this a couple minutes ago. Like, what are they doing here right now? Like, supposedly, Oxley wrote this riddle to get Indy to find where he left the skull.
Mm-hmm.
But it said nothing about like find my cell in the sanitarium in that town.
Yeah.
Like, the lines were somehow supposed to lead him to where Oriana is. Like this visit to the cell isn't part of the plan and maybe shouldn't be part of the script or explained better than why it is part of the script.
You know what? I don't remember everything about this movie, but this might be real quicksand later. Does Oxley know what he is doing? Because they paint him as this genius type who speaks in riddles, and he's only capable of speaking in riddles. And you're like, but if he really wants to be rescued and you really want to save people's lives, you got to get out of the riddle thing. Like, you're going to have to communicate better than that. And so is Oxley crazy? Like a madman, like an actual madman who's walking around and he can't organize his thoughts at all, or he can't communicate with anybody. He's completely incoherent. Or is he like, does he know what he's doing? And he's sending Indy a riddle because he's like, only my great pal, Indiana Jones, will understand this riddle. And I need to put it in riddle form. So these damn Russians or, all the other people who might intercept it or read it, they won't understand it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like we said before, it doesn't have to be a riddle if that's the case. Like, Indy is supposedly the only person who could even just make sense of this stuff, who could like read the Mayan offshoot language that it's written in and stuff, and figure out what all these clues mean and stuff. But you're right. Like, either he's nuts and this is just like, rantings that he's just sending out that he somehow mailed to Marion. I'll never understand that. But like, or he's smart enough to send clues to his friend. Like,
right.
It doesn't seem like the two
And so if that's the case,
together. Then
I'm going to expect if Indiana Jones meets Oxley's going to say like, oh, hey man, did you get my riddles?
Yeah, I've been pulling the wool over these guys' eyes this whole time. They think I'm nuts.
Or just,
So glad you got it.
Yeah.
Just go, you got my letter and it made sense. I knew you're the only one who would understand. Like he's going to speak that way to Indy.
Well,
You're right.
were this a better movie, I think you could read more into this, but I don't think you can given this movie. Like,
Yeah.
I think you could read into this that maybe there was more to the riddle that Indy doesn't trust Mutt enough to tell him, which said, go to the sanitarium, check out my cell or something.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't think this movie has that in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about that now. But like, yeah, Oxley would have to know that. I don't know. Like,
Well,
don't let Mutt see my sanitarium room. It'll bug him. He's
Well,
not ready for that.
letter
Yeah, I
was
haven't tickled
really
him in a long
long.
time.
Like, that's a long letter to just say
Right.
that one sentence.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let me
Right.
just throw this out there. Does Oxley want to be found and saved?
Yeah, does he have a plan at all? Is he conscious of what's going on with him?
That's what
Like, does he
I'm
know that he's
asking.
Yeah.
kidnapped?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he wildly incoherent and these are madman ramblings, or he's just so far up in the ivory tower, kind of like Henry Jones Sr., but even on beyond Zebra, where he's just writing, crazy musings and ruminations down, or does he want to get saved? And he's like, this is my only chance. I can't break out of here. But you know what I can do? I can send a letter to Marion and I'll,
Right.
it just, if it's intercepted, I know that no one else will be able to follow it except Indy.
Yeah. If
Well,
I act crazy enough, these guys will drive me to the post office and I can mail this letter.
But does this also mean that he didn't trust Marion? Like, couldn't he have just told Marion all this stuff to tell to Indy?
Right.
Yeah. He's clearly being like set up now from what we've heard, and what we see later, I think we find out that he's just plain old bonkers.
Right.
Yeah.
Which means that none of this really makes sense.
Right. None of this
Like, it
fiction
doesn't make
matters.
sense that he would get this information, like actual useful information, to Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Right, he's splitting the difference. That's what's confusing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he is.
Yeah,
That's
he is.
what's he's not plain old bonkers. He
They're trying to
sends
have
a
it both ways.
missive. Yeah, he sends
Right.
Indy an SOS message.
Yeah.
But
He when we see him, he's not capable of that kind of thing.
Right.
and also you're just like, if you want to get saved and you're cognizant enough that you want to be rescued and you're going to have to snap out of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it seems like all it would have taken would be like, a moment where Ox just winks at Indy or something, just gives you something.
Yeah.
Right.
Say, all right. Then you could accept everything else. Like, all right, that was the deal. But without something, it is bizarre. It's really
Yeah.
half baked.
Yeah.
He's kind of
Just to keep the we're gonna get comments and stuff. Just to keep that a bit there. I'm now that I'm thinking about it, there are like, he's the kind of crazy where he'll say useful stuff
Mhm.
in like a backwards way or
Mhm.
something later on. So maybe it is that kind of thing. Like I don't know. He just accidentally wrote this helpful riddle. I don't know.
I'm just
It is
sitting
weird.
here smiling, imagining how enraged Tom would be if there was a scene where Ox winked.
no,
I'm
it's
sure
true.
In this movie, there would definitely be a
true.
little Tinkerbell dink sound.
Yeah. Well, does he just have like? Is there just some sort of blockage in his frontal cortex or something? It's like he knows that he's in danger and he needs to
Yeah.
get saved, but he can only speak in riddles.
Or is this an R2 situation where the message is garbled?
Mm.
Oh, have they said anything about why he's nuts? Is this a movie, guys? Is everything okay? Like, I mean, are we to understand that it's like from this, like something happened to him, like with the skull? Like the skull
Right.
supposedly has like
Yeah.
brain powers or something. Did he
Right.
go? We're getting way ahead of ourselves,
Well,
but
yeah,
still,
right.
we need to prepare ourselves for when this shows up.
Well, does this explain why the nun, why Indy's sister has the door locked like 8 different times in an empty cell?
Right. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good
Right,
question.
yeah.
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 Or was she like, because we're gonna see like he's written all over the place, is she gonna be like, oh, we're It was too interesting. We didn't want anybody to go in there and see the cool stuff. We're going to charge admission later. We're not ready yet, though.
Maybe does he have moments of clarity? But then even those are still occluded.
It seems like
right, you know.
Yeah, it almost seems as though he does have these little, but like really short moments where all right, there's a little something there.
And then you still have to decipher it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But if you only had moments of clarity, like you'd write a little bit of that letter and then you'd forget that you wrote it and then you'd probably rip it up or something when you saw it.
Yeah.
Like he'd have to write that letter like 30 times.
No, wait. He wrote this after he was captured, right?
So this, are you saying he wrote this before he lost his mind?
Well, no. What I'm wondering is he was doing auto writing or whatever it was, and then the Russians mailed the letter to get Indy to go
Indy
down there.
He does say that the Russians let him mail it. Like knowingly let him mail it to get it to him.
So I think the idea was they were going to follow them because they couldn't figure it out. So we'll follow these guys.
Yeah, but they showed up and just picked them up at the malt shop.
Yeah, right.
Like, isn't that's a lot easier than like, okay, here's what we're going to do.
Right.
We're going to take the crazy guy and we're going to have him make a coherent, semi-coherent riddle that only Indiana Jones is going to understand.
Yeah. We'll let him address it and put a stamp on it. Address it to Marion on the run somewhere in South America.
Well, the other thing I don't get, if this whole letter is just a ploy to find Indiana Jones, they could have just looked in like the Marshall College yearbook. Like he wasn't hiding.
Right.
He was really easy to find.
Yeah.
Right. This movie doesn't make a ton of sense, you guys. I mean, there's part of me that wants to like track what we know about where Oxley's been so far and like how he got here and everything. But I'm like, really? Do we have to do that? Are we going to be satisfied with what we figure out?
I mean, it does that. You're like riddles. That's cool. It's basically 3, 7, 10. Don't you get it?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. No, I don't, Indiana Jones. I don't get it.
But you know what it is? A few months ago on our weekend Patreon show, we were talking about the movie The Mummy. And The Mummy had a lot of stuff that didn't make sense, but it was such a madcap, fun adventure, it didn't matter that it didn't make sense. But this movie takes itself a little more seriously. Mm-hmm. And as an Indiana Jones movie, you expect it to make more sense than it does, I think.
Which I guess we shouldn't feel that way, really, right?
Well, okay.
Over the last two movies.
Mark, I'm so glad that you're here, Mark, because you can answer this question.
I'll try.
There's 4 movies out. Is Indiana Jones a madcap adventure franchise?
The first one is not. To me, that's like they took a serial and they elevated it to this beautiful thing, and then they decided to make serials after that, I think. And I mean, ultimately, yes, he is a franchise kind of guy, but I think the last 3 films were clearly that was what they were going for. And that's, and
sort of madcap it, because we had a big discussion about this not long ago. Mm-hmm. And if 75% of the films fall into the madcap adventure hopper,
right,
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Our problem is that the one that isn't like that is the one that we love the most dearly.
Yeah,
it's like the one that got us here.
Right, exactly.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
But then again, that happens a lot. I mean, like everyone remembers In the Heat of the Night, but does anybody remember They Call Me Mr. Tibbs or The Organization? Right. There was a trilogy of films, but thank God no one remembers the other 2. And not that the other 2 are bad.
Until this moment, I didn't know there was a third one.
Exactly.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right. But the other 2 are fine. But one's a classic, and then the others are, kind of forgettable. But But I don't want to say that all these are forgettable, because you can still have fun with most of them.
It's just, I mean, I've taken the last 3 movies to task for being, a cartoony madcappy.
Right.
And now it's tough. I have to like full back on myself, and it's like, but if 75% of them are, maybe I am viewing what the franchise is incorrectly.
Yeah, I mean,
see, I still disagree with you that Temple of Doom was mad cappy.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you're half. Yeah, that Temple of Doom was weird because there was a lot of goofball, madcappy stuff.
It
With
had
some
of
really
that, but
dark
it also
stuff.
had a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas this is light, and Last Crusade was pretty light.
Yeah, I would.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with you in the sense that I think the last two films were clearly just trying to do a lot of fan service and a lot of, a light romp. Whereas,
Mm-hmm.
and I think certainly this one is probably more of a reference to Last Crusade than anything else, because it was like, oh, this is what we do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a family romp.
Right.
Right. Let's have
Yeah.
a good. Let's have some fun, guys.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it sound like I don't enjoy these movies, because they're great. They're all fun, but there's still the first, and there's everyone else. For me.
Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting. We've wrestled with that for 4 years now. So
It's true.
Well, speaking of, there's the first and then everybody else, Jer.
that's nice, Pete. I was going to say, speaking of wrestling with for years and years, this just in from Professor Christy Porter. Wait a minute.
Is this a riddle?
Yeah,
It's
really.
written in.
Oh, yes. Here it comes through. There it is. Is the phonograph working? Is it pacifying the monsters?
Yeah, to be honest,
Seems like I'm guessing it's supposed to be, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it is.
I never made that connection. I remember watching, going, "All right, there's a record playing."
why
I'm
is it-
assuming it
yeah.
must have been that to try to soothe the savage.
Kind
beast.
of like music soothes the savage beast.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe the record player was playing the Mexican hat dance 2 months ago.
You got this new record from that other country, Mexico.
Yeah.
I got that.
Like Indy's sister spent some time in Mexico before coming down to Peru.
You know what? Look, those being nuns, I'm sure that's a torture device. That guy's probably screaming, "Turn it off! Turn it off!"
For this record 500 times.
Well, on that note, Mark, we can easily listen to you 500 times.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you for joining us today.
And I'm going to listen to
And-
you guys 500 times, so thank you.
Hey.
Wow. Hey, thank you. And any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to share? Would you like to share your own personal projects again?
No, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. It was really fun. It was,
Oh, thank you.
I think everybody just wishes they can come on the show, and I feel fortunate. So thanks.
Aw.
Oh, that was very nice. Thank you. And Jerry, you have any last thoughts for us?
I do, actually.
Oh.
Yes,
Okay.
Second 31, we do have our first. Now, it was the deranged maniac screaming, but that is the first official Beautiful Eye alert.
Oh,
Oh, interesting.
And I was
Yeah,
there
it's
for
been-
that minute.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's been a
Wow.
minute.
Tell
your
It's
grandkids about
been a
this.
moment, but that is the first one.
Wow.
Here it is, minute 42. We have a Beautiful Eye alert. I think some of it was enhanced by the prison grays and greens. It kind of drew out his beautiful eyes a little bit.
Well,
But there it
I
is.
find it happens a
Like
lot.
saying-
so-
Eyes.
Yeah.
when he's saying I
Yeah.
stabbed him, he didn't finish the sentence. With my eyes.
Yeah. I gave him that piercing stare that I'm giving you right now.
Do it again. Do it again.
And speaking of doing it again, you can come back here Monday for minute 43, where we're going to do this again on Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Not on that, but of that, here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Phonograph.
Hey.